I'm just here to talk about houseplants, which I have over 100 of.
Oh, God.
Why do we grow houseplants? What is the point of growing houseplants?
Happiness.
Happiness. Anything
Happiness.
else? What? It's healthy for the air.
Yes.
I think that's very
So I sleep good.
realistic. That if you grow certain plants, especially, there are plants that purify the air and can absorb formaldehyde, which can be given off by things we keep in our homes. Because the big factor in keeping plants happy is mostly light. It's usually a problem with light when the plants don't do well because they're unhappy. They either need brighter light or they're getting too bright. Some plants actually don't like bright light. They know the light needs of your plant. And like I said, most of the time, the brighter the light, the better, but sometimes too much light isn't good either. Water is also obviously important, but some plants you can let dry out. You have to know your plant. So if you let them dry out completely and then just give them a good dose of water where it runs out the bottom, you should always water your plants thoroughly, but let it drain. Every flower pot you own has to have holes in the bottom. If it doesn't, you have a problem because your plant could literally drown and rot.
I did that. No, you? Okay, good.
So make sure you water properly. And to tell, sometimes you can't tell. The soil seems dry on the outside when you look at it, or you touch it. But if you lift up the pot's still heavy. If the pot's heavy, it's full of water, so you don't need to water. So you have to know your plants pretty much and decide whether it needs watering or not. So it's kind of customized. Soil, of course, is important, and we always buy the commercial mix. Everybody uses regular soil. Back in the day when my grandma came home, the soil was from the backyard, but we know that's wrong because that's not the best soil. It can be heavy and clay. It could also contain worms and all kinds of things. So we use the potting soil, and that's always good. But sometimes the roots start coming out the bottom, and the soil looks like it's all being pushed out. Some plants literally push the soil away because they make so many roots. In that case, you really need to repot your plant, which is about every year or two, depending on the plant. And I do that in the summer because that's when they tend to grow the most. Before I bring them in, I try to repot things. Or I just take them out and just take cuttings and then throw the rest of the plant away, which I have done, and I put them on the compost pile, and then I go back 2 years later and find them growing there, and I'll bring this back in the house. And food is important too, but not as important as the soil, the water, and the light. I tend to use this Osmocote, which is the time release. Some people like that blue water, which is Miracle Grow, but plants don't care what kind of food they get. They just need a small dose of food, and the best time is in the spring and summer to feed them. Don't feed them in the winter because they're not getting as much light and they're not growing as big as I have. These tend to do well in low light. These are, I don't have the pointer. These are my plants that I put in a north-facing window. Actually, the begonia stays brighter. The begonia's at the bottom. But the other two stay in the north-facing. They like low light, and they tend to be happy with just indirect light, so the north side of the house just gets bright light. Whatever. But they love north light also, and they do not always bloom. These haven't bloomed, I don't know how many years. Patience is the key. They tend to like be root bound, pot bound. The two variegated kind, I think they look nice anyway because they're variegated and they need to bloom, but they could have nice pink flowers. And then I propagate these. I take a leaf and just stick it. I see somebody else's and I say, well, that's a really pretty one. I want to take a leaf of that. And before they could even say, well, wait, that doesn't belong to me. I'm just watching my neighbor. No, it's gone. I ruined it. So my African violets, they just hang out, and once in a while they do bloom. They say you should give them some type of fertilizer, I think, to encourage blooming. I'm kind of a lazy gardener, so I don't do that. Okay, we go to the next one. These are all begonias, and they tend to like a lot of light, and this time of year they're actually throwing up flowers, little stalks of flowers. In the winter they get more sunlight because the sun is lower in the sky and it makes an angle into the windows, so they do really well. But in the summer, when I put them outside, I don't give them any sun at all. I just give them indirect light on my porch because they'll burn in the sun. So when you put your plants outside, make sure they're really not exposed to direct sun at the middle of the day. Maybe the morning is okay, towards midday, but don't let them sit in the sun, let's say from 12 until 4, because they will bake and they will burn up and die. Unless they're succulents, which if you just keep going, next one. That's another begonia that I have that I think I've shared with lots of you. I'll take more cuttings, I'll get that to you. Okay, Ann has it. That's another begonia that one was in the raffle. Oh, and this is another low light plant. This is a pathos, which again, I know I've brought in plenty of cuttings from these. Pathos is a very strange plant because it will grow in water. You can just put it in a vase, keep some water at the bottom of it, and it will continue to grow and be happy, and it actually grows water roots that are specific to absorbing water only. And if you then transplant it into soil, it might even die on you, which happened to me. And I learned that it has specific roots just for water. So if you want to do cuttings and actually stick it in soil, don't put it in water first. Put it in soil direct, and it will grow the proper kind of root to absorb water from the soil as opposed to a jar. So it's a good plant. It's low light, never gets any bugs at all. You can't kill it unless you really leave it even drying out. It does okay when you dry it out. You can't overwater it, which is nice. So it's kind of trouble-free. Boston fern is the one that I was saying absorbs. What did I say? It absorbed formaldehyde, and it will humidify. Well, it doesn't humidify, but it likes a bed of pebbles underneath it because it really does well in high humidity. And that's another trick I sometimes do. I take a big bowl or whatever, put a bunch of pebbles at the bottom, let the plant sit on top of the pebbles, and then add water to it so that as the water evaporates, some humidity will go right up to the root. These are more low-light plants, peperomia and croton. And yes, we recognize the one in the lower left is actually on the raffle table right now. It's called peperomia, and it's a mini red tree, it's called, because if you give it a lot of bright light, like almost sunlight, the stems turn red. It's a really interesting plant. I love it because it's little tiny leaves, and new plants come out from the bottom, so you can actually propagate things. I have a handbook that is very old. It's from 1975. It has good pictures, and it also has possible problems with plants, including insect-type problems that you would find. It has a lot of tips on what kind of soil does it need, what kind of watering needs. It's got like a little chart for each plant, and to me it's like my Bible of houseplants because I don't always know everything. Although now with the internet, this book is from 1975, before there was the internet. I take cuttings of everything because as things get overgrown and start to get a little unwieldy, I cut things back. I'm constantly taking clippings. So this is typically me in the summer. Everything's growing like mad. I take cuttings like galore and I stick it in a jar. And again, without any extra light, because it's in a covered porch, and things just root like mad. And we get the benefit because I pot everything up and bring it to the raffle because I have too many plants. It's a problem. This is that purple, purple passion. It's variegated though. I like this plant because it's very interesting. But this one likes a lot of sun, otherwise it doesn't show the colors as much. Okay, so we just keep going. Succulents, they have a care all their own because they are the plants that really don't like a lot of water, but they do need water. People say, oh, I don't water my cactus for a month. Well, you could kill a cactus if you don't water it at all. It does need water, so what I try to do is just give it good drenching once every 2 weeks or so, but they do need water, and they tend to grow a lot if you give them a lot of water, but they will rot if you give them way too much water. So you have to pick up the pot, feel like it's super light and pretty much completely dry, and then you know you should water it. And they do love a lot of sun, so they get southern exposure. And these are more types of succulents. I tend to overdo it on every type of plant. And I'll just take questions if anybody wants. Eileen has a question. Plastic versus clay pots. That's a good question. Plastic tends to hold the moisture better, but for plants like African violets and succulents that like it dry, clay is probably better because it will dry out more. So for plants, you have to know your plant. If you know a plant likes moisture, use plastic, like dendrons and the spider plants especially. You can't water a spider plant enough because it has these roots that look like tubers that hold water. So For plastic is the best for those, but for anything that really likes it dry, clay is actually better if you have a choice. Insects are a problem. I monitor my plants. I'm always looking at them and studying them and looking at the leaves to see if there's anything growing. This summer, which I think really helped me a lot, was I took the neem oil, put it in the spray bottle, and I sprayed every plant that was outside, every plant from every angle as best I could, and then let them dry a bit and then brought them in the house. So I think that really helped my infestation. If you have plants that can be immersed, like let's say you're taking cuttings and you suspect there's bugs on them, what I do with the cuttings is I fill up my sink with some water, hand soap, just a couple squirts of hand soap and alcohol. And I dunk the plant, swish it around, literally. Every area of the plant gets covered with this natural, it's, homemade insecticide, because the alcohol will kill the bugs. The soap will actually help it penetrate the scale, because scale has a real thick shell. And the warm water will dilute it a little bit, because you don't want it to be too strong. You don't just use out pure alcohol. If you like this book, it really tells you that white flies are a problem, for instance, in certain plants, and spider mites.
Plants like when they turn brown, does it mean it's overwatered, underwatered, too much light?
With the brown, it signifies usually it didn't get enough water once, and part of it died because the water would go to the tips when it's heavily watered, and I forgot to water that plant, so the tip turned brown. Then I watered it, and it saved the rest of the plant. But yeah, if you see brown tips, especially on things like spider plants, they need a lot of water. There are some plants that just love water, and they can't get enough of it. So, and if it's brown, you can cut it away, and it will grow new leaves, and it's not the end of the world.